All right, today we're going to challenge a piece of advice you've probably heard a million times. I mean, it's practically a cliche. And we're going to explore a completely different way to think about success, one that's built on discipline, not just a fleeting spark of inspiration. You hear it everywhere, right? Graduation speeches, motivational posters, you name it. Follow your passion. It sounds great, it's meant to be inspiring. But what if this advice isn't just a little misguided? What if it's actually a trap?
You know, to really get to the bottom of this, we have to look at the word passion itself. We think of it as excitement, joy, all that good stuff. But its origins, they tell a totally different story. It actually comes from the Latin word patio, which means to suffer. Seriously, think about that for a second. To be passionate wasn't about feeling good, it was about being willing to endure hardship for something you believed in.
That original meaning just completely flips our modern idea of passion on its head, doesn't it? And this leads us to a really powerful critique of how we approach our work, which we can call the passion lie. This whole idea that chasing a fleeting spark is pretty much a recipe for failure.
So the core idea here is, well, it's pretty provocative. It basically suggests that if your commitment just evaporates the minute things get hard or boring, that moment you lose the spark, then maybe you weren't truly passionate in the first place. You were just enjoying the easy parts.
And here's that same idea put in the most blunt way possible, a direct quote from the source material. If you quit because you lost the spark, you aren't passionate, you're just soft. Now look, that's a harsh statement, for sure, but it's designed to kind of shock us into shifting our thinking, away from just chasing feelings and towards building real, genuine resilience.
Okay, so if the spark isn't the answer, then what is? Well, the reality of any meaningful work can pretty much be broken down into what's called the 95-5 rule. This rule is so simple, but it's really profound. In pretty much any big pursuit, only a tiny little sliver, about 5%, is the part you truly enjoy. You know, the big wins, the breakthroughs, the applause. The other 95%, that massive chunk, that's the monotonous, repetitive grind. It's all the unglamorous, behind-the-scenes work that makes that 5% even possible. So if 95% of our work is going to be a grind, then relying on some fleeting spark is a losing strategy. It's just not going to work. We need a more durable operating system for our motivation. And that leads us to this new framework, the power of duty. And the difference between these two ways of thinking is just stark. Passion, the way we use the word today, is driven by feelings. It's always asking, do I feel like doing this right now? But duty, that's completely different. It's driven by commitment. It serves a purpose, and it asks a much tougher question. Is this required to achieve the goal? Okay, so this whole concept of duty, it makes sense in theory, but how do we actually apply it to our lives? How do we find our why and actually put this thing into practice? Let's get tactical for a minute. The process really breaks down into 3 key steps. First, you have to consciously reframe your work. Start seeing it as a duty, not just a way to chase good feelings. Second, and this is the big one, you have to find a goal that is genuinely worth suffering for, a goal that makes that 95% grind feel meaningful. And then third, you execute. You do what is required, period, regardless of how you feel on any given day. So what does a goal worth suffering for actually look like? Well, it's rarely just about the money. It's almost always about a much deeper purpose. Things like providing security and a future for your family, or building a legacy that's going to outlast you, or pouring yourself into a cause you truly believe in. So let's pull all this together. What's the final, most essential takeaway from this big shift in thinking, from passion to duty? Well, first, just remember the true origin of passion. It means to suffer. Second, lasting success isn't found in that fun 5%. It is forged in the 95% of grinding, repetitive work. Third, duty gives you a foundation of commitment that a fleeting feeling never ever can. And finally, the most important task for you is to identify a why, a goal so important that you are willing to endure whatever it takes to achieve it. And that leaves us with a really challenging question. It's not about what makes you happy in the moment. It's about what gives you a lasting, deep sense of purpose. It's a huge shift away from temporary feelings and towards a much more resilient source of motivation. So the question you really need to ask yourself is this: what is the goal you are willing to suffer for?